animals. See?
Well, there's some animals, but there's also definitely a man and also a woman. And maybe some shapes.
You will get it, please.
Are you sure?
You're too sore.
Sure.
Sore.
Because you want to go have what?
Fruit. Okay, fruit.
You mean like breakfast? You sure?
Ice cream.
How sure?
Sure.
Sure.
You will get those animals.
Okay, let me see if the baby's ready to come. Are you ready? So by my calculations, those of you watching this show probably fall into one of 5 categories. Number 1, you went to YouTube, you started typing in Doomsday, and accidentally you landed here on the way to what you actually were looking for. Well, welcome. Or as you're probably thinking, oh shit, alternative number 2, you just come for the comedy, my zany, witty sense of humor. Well, if that's the case, and assuming you didn't hear about this special segment at the end of this show, then chances are high you're fast forwarding through this. Option number 3 is you're looking for a new job, either because you're unemployed or because you want something bigger and better than your current role, but in the same industry. In that case, I want to turn it over to my guests from this season so that you can hear their words of wisdom directly from them. So top tips for number 1, getting your foot in the door, and number 2, getting the offer.
So the very first thing is skill up. To stay current and relevant, increase your knowledge base. Also building your brand is a very important part of this. Being highly visible, participating in dialogues with people, having conversations that are expanding your network, connecting you to resources,
Right.
and people who can help you get to where you want to go.
Resume interview for both, I would say, if you can, hire some type of professional coach, because recruiters are paid by companies. They're looking for someone who has a polished resume. They're looking for someone who has a polished interview. Yes, they're going to coach you to get that job once you get the interview. And yes, they're going to look at your resume and give you a few suggestions, but it's not the same as someone working for you. You really need to build a network on LinkedIn. And it's not about your resume. It's not about my profile is I'm looking for a job. It's about promoting yourself. Get involved. So, make comments. Always look to improve yourself and take classes and learn new interview techniques. And there's a million free resources out there.
You need to be the full package. And that's everything from your picture on LinkedIn, the way that you structure your email address, your voicemail, how you speak about your experience. All of this is part of your brand. And if your brand is solid, you will be remembered. And we have to remember, recruiters, hiring managers, they're people too. And we all experience things and experience people on a 360 level. Most industries have some sort of benchmarks you're expected to meet. And those benchmarks could be numbers of people, it could be a particular revenue amount at the end of the month. Whatever the benchmarks are that your company is looking at those weekly meetings, did we meet this, did we meet that? Think about where you sit in that. And what were your particular benchmarks that you were expected to meet, and did you meet, did you exceed? So think of numbers, because recruiters love numbers. It's a great way to just quickly and easily measure, can you do the job and can you excel at it? Also thinking about, where did you take a position of leadership?
And if you're laid off because of COVID, please don't fall into the trap of despair. It's not hopeless. It shouldn't be. And in fact, to illustrate that point, one of my guests in the upcoming season is going to be somebody who re-entered the workforce after a multi-year absence. But in the meantime, I wanted to remind you about one point from episode 2.
Somebody in HR who was talking about a former employee who they'd let go. And I said, what normally happens when you run into somebody who you fired? And I was shocked. Her answer was, this was over 15 years ago. She said they normally run up to me and hug me because it wasn't the right role for them. And after they were let go, they found what was right for them.
And option number 4, if you're watching this, is that you might be looking to reinvent yourself by pivoting, switching careers. In that case, to me, the top tip that comes out of season 1 of this show is that you should talk to as many people as possible to really make an informed decision as to whether or not the pivot that you're thinking about making is a good and a smart one for you, because it's going to take time, it's going to take energy, it may take education dollars, and so you want to have some basis to think that this is going to be a good move, one that's going to work for you. So talk to as many people as you can, or as my guests have said.
I talked to 732 at least people because I was leaving a job. I was going to incur an enormous amount of debt. And to come out of law school and not be employable in my mid-40s, having left a career, is a scary thing. But
Yes.
I weighed those risks. I spoke to everybody I possibly could, and then start to learn the landscape and to understand it even before you go there, so that you can plan and understand and then really assess.
I thought, I need to look at what I'm doing and what can I do that will give me more satisfaction. So a friend of mine that I worked with was also a paramedic for the city of Chicago on the side, full-time, but on the side. I started investigating it. And I took a EMT class and fell in love instantly.
I learned about the recruiting industry by actually interviewing at maybe 25 different recruiting agencies. I was a sponge. I would go to each recruiting agency in these in-person interviews, and I would ask them questions, and I learned about recruiting.
And finally, option number 5 is, if you're watching this, you might be thinking about striking out on your own, starting your own business, becoming a freelancer, being entrepreneurial. And maybe this is kind of just diving into the water, or maybe it's been something that you've been dipping your toe in the water a little bit already, kind of as a side gig and in the evenings, on the weekends, in addition to your full-time thing. And now you're wondering, should I go all in? Well, I think that it makes sense to prepare yourself, because it could be a hard journey. And how hard will it be? Well, obviously there's no guarantee of success to begin with, but you should be prepared for the possibility that it might take a while to really, really get underway if your business is going to be successful.
I started from exactly zero. I borrowed money from my mother to buy my equipment, which was very expensive. And I took ads out in the newspaper, but it really ended up that I needed to really super network. As the new kid on the block, it was extremely difficult. It was a very, very uncertain time, and I used to be afraid that I wasn't going to make the rent that month. Not to mention what you have to bring home to feed your family. Sometimes I would moonlight in other people's offices, whatever it took.
At the beginning was very hard for me, and I think it takes a really long time to hustle. And transitioning, I think, into any career that wasn't your own, I think some people maybe are fortunate that it takes off right away, and that didn't happen for me.
The first year and a half was scary financially, was scary. And so I'm glad that I had started small, that I had started very, very lean.
And to the question of, how do you know you're ready? Sometimes you'll jump right in, just dive head first. Other times, you may want to try a gentler approach.
I thought I had a balancing act of jobs in the past, and I think most entrepreneurial spirits do. You're dipping one toe into a new realm or a new opportunity. Simultaneously, you need to still pay your bills and hold down the fort, let's be honest. So you do need a solid income and health insurance. And so when I first started, I thought dip your toe in tentativeness. And as I got into my first year, I realized that this is something I want to do. Let me explore more. Second year, same thing. And year 2.5, when this is like a toddler style business and we're ready to dig in a little bit more, was able to invest in some infrastructure and make it more viable, and then but sort of slowly back away from a institutional job.
And perhaps the biggest takeaway that I personally have learned from season 1 of this show is what I took in from Tyler Kirk. He kept hitting roadblock after roadblock after roadblock from the day he learned that he was losing his sight at age 8. He was told that he might well be delayed graduating high school 1, if not 2 years, and that there was a decent chance that he would fail at college completely. He was not willing to let that be his story. He defied the expectations there, but then he hit another roadblock when he was pursuing a PhD in economics, and suddenly he lost his sight completely. So he pivoted. He went into law, became a lawyer. And then he hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock over the years he spent in his first and then second and then third job. But he powered through it all, saying, if I can't zig, I'll zag. If I can't go over, I'll go under or around. I think his words there really are what I hope you'll take home with you at the end of the day here.
And I have this phrase that I use. I call it my 3D approach to life, and it's dedication, determination, and discipline. And I've always told myself that if you use the 3D approach to life of dedication, determination, and discipline, you can ultimately be happy with wherever you end up in life. And the reason why that works for me, and I think it might work for some other people too, is because you're focusing on what's within your control, not what is out of your control. I just harness those 3 words and I apply them to make myself better in the current situation and prepared to take advantage of the next opportunity.
Many years ago, there was a book published with a dedication to the author's 5 kids. He noted that without those 5 kids, the book would not have been necessary. Today, I raise my sippy cup to my video editor, without whom the upcoming 2-week break would not be necessary. Cheers to you, and wishing you so much joy and many sippy cupfuls of happiness. And to the rest of you, I'll see you in 2 weeks.